So let's go ahead and gut this and start on our next loop, which is the for loop. So I'm going to type for. And the for loop takes three conditions. It takes a starting point. So we can say integer I equals 0. And then we need a counter, so we can just write, or we need some sort of condition. So as long as I is less than or equal to 5, we can, remember we talked about last time how we can increment it by 1, I++. So what it's going to do is it's going to run through this loop until I reaches 5. Okay. So let's go ahead and say console output I, and then we'll end line. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save that. And the reason I'm getting I just looked at this, it's not a comma, it's a semicolon, because these are actual statements. That should clear up our error. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control F5. You can see here that what it does is before it runs these two conditions here, it just runs it checks it against 0. So the first thing it does, it says, okay, we're starting at 0, here's 0. Then it runs through it and it goes, okay, I'm going to go ahead and increment it because it starts off at 0. Remember, these are statements. You can think of them as almost 3 different statements. And it says, okay, is 0 less than 5? Yes. We're going to make it 1. And then it goes through to 1. So imagine that during your for loop, it doesn't check these two conditions until it's run through at least once. Make sure that you remember that. Something you're going to see a lot in other, especially in games, is nested for loops. So what I'm going to do is just copy this entire for loop here. And I'm going to paste it below this one. Oops. There we go. And I'm going to change I to J. And instead of seeing out a J, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to see out a star. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to hit Control F5. Let's take a look at what our output is. Actually, you know what we should do? I'm going to go ahead and remove the end line altogether. All right, let's run that again. And we never checked, we've never actually incremented J, so let's do this one more time. Otherwise it'll just run forever. So let's change this to J, and there we go. Okay, so let me run that one more time, and then we'll run through the code. Okay, there we go. So what's happening here? It runs this for loop once. So it goes, as long as this for loop runs once, that's 0, print this out. Then what it does next is, let's close out all these guys. It's going to continuously run this for loop until it's satisfied all of these requirements. So what we can do to better illustrate this too is I can just leave that end L here. This can be a little bit confusing. Let's Control F5 that again. There we go. So you can see here it ran 0 once, right? Then it said, okay, 0 was done. Then it went ahead and ran this with 5 stars here. Then it incremented it by 1. And then this only ran once, and then it ran this 5 times until all of the conditions were met. So you can change this number to 3 if you want. Let's run that again, so you can see that it only spit out those 4 stars, because it goes from 0 to 4. So you can see that this will continuously run. This for loop will run until it's satisfied, then it'll jump back to this condition and check it. So this runs 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then this runs continuously 4 iterations each time it runs through that for loop once. So same thing as I said before. Write the code out on paper, play with different symbols until you sort of are really seeing that, oh, okay, I get it. This runs once, this runs until this condition is met, then it jumps up here, double checks this condition until the entire code is